Good evening, friends, and happy Thursday, and welcome back to the 12th Horseshoe podcast right here on Surge Sports TV alongside Elijah Weintraub. I am Jack Rizzo. Football is finally back. We have made it through the offseason. Training camp has officially started. As of today, all 32 teams have reported to training camp. We are so back. It is time for the grind here on the podcast. No more offseason. Football is finally here. Great to be back with you, Eli. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Football's here. Training camp's underway, and we are a week away from the first preseason game, that being the Hall of Fame game, in less than a week from now. So it's exciting time for football, but we're all ready for September, really, for when the regular season gets underway and we go back to our normal Tuesday, Friday style shows, which we all cannot wait for.
Yep, absolutely. We are speaking of September. We are exactly 6 weeks away today from the first game, Ravens Chiefs on Thursday night. All right, so we've got a lot to
We're
talk about
sponsored
today.
by Prova, an Italian eatery in Moonachie, New Jersey. Don't forget to visit their website. Check it out in the little tagger below on where you can find more details.
Thank you, Eli. All right, so we have quite a lot to talk about today. Preseason, training camp, other news. Just start off with a couple of quick hitters before we get into the preseason. Um, uh, Sadly, Vikings rookie cornerback Kyrie Jackson passed away recently in a car crash. Really unfortunate news. And also, former Ravens return specialist Jacoby Jones, the man responsible for the longest touchdown in Super Bowl history, a beloved figure there in Baltimore, passed away at the age of 40 last week. So unfortunate news, sadly, for those two players. Also, something talked about a lot, Eli. Last week, College Football 25 officially came out, the new video game. First time in about a decade the video game has been out, but the servers crashed like right as the game was released, and the date got pushed back. So a bit of a rocky start, but I'm sure the game is going to be so popular. Everyone has been talking about College Football 25 and its return to the video game world.
Absolutely. I mean, we heard a lot about it when we were at Northeast Conference Social Media Day. We did hear a lot about it. Actually, a lot of players are saying it's a really good game and that they were really good at it. So, and they were all happy about it. So long as if they're happy and, it's a well-organized machine, you can't really complain there. Yeah, so far it's been pretty good. And, something we did not mention, we were part of North Social Media Day at Northeast Conference Football yesterday, which was pretty cool for the two of us. My full interview is available on the Sports with Mono YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. And yeah, we had a great time yesterday. We got to interview a lot of players. It was a lot of fun. And you could follow us on social media below where you could see for more videos about what both of us have done. So yeah.
Yep. And shout out to the NEC for hosting us yesterday.
And the
Incredible
Sports
opportunity.
Broadcasting Camp for inviting us.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you to everyone. It was an amazing time. Thank you to everyone.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get right into it, Eli. We will start off with, you mentioned it already, the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game next Thursday, 1 week from today in Canton, Ohio. I don't care that it's preseason. I'm just excited to watch football again. But before that, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony is before that game. So I'm just going to quickly go over the players who will be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. There are 7 total names being enshrined into Canton this year. Super Bowl champions, White Freeney, Super Bowl champion with the Colts. Let's go. Devin Hester, also a part of that Super Bowl, returned the kickoff, opening kickoff for the touchdown. Greatest returner of all time. So deserving. Patrick Willis, former linebacker of the San Francisco 49ers, retired early, but he was so good. Definitely deserves to get in. Julius Peppers, one of the most productive pass rushers of the 21st century. And Andre Johnson, who put up incredible stats despite never playing with an elite quarterback. So credit to Andre Johnson for the career he had. We also have a couple of older players getting in. Steve McMichael, a former defensive player for the Bears, I believe, diagnosed with ALS recently, receiving some, I forgot the name of it, like some award, some like special award, and then he's going to be trying. And then we also have Randy Gradishar. I think I said that right. So those are the 7 names that are being enshrined into Canton this year. Congratulations to those 7 players. All right, and then the game, the Hall of Fame game, Canton, Ohio, Houston Texans taking on the Chicago Bears. That game is at 8 p.m. and it's on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN+. So we have one more week, guys, until we have actual football action. So get ready.
Yep, and enjoy the Olympics since they start tomorrow.
They do start tomorrow, right? All right, so we talked about the preseason a little bit, but one of the things to watch for in the preseason, Eli, this year are the new rules. There's a couple of new rule changes in the NFL this season in the preseason. I think the one everyone's going to be looking out for the most is the new kickoff rule. And this is a very complicated rule, but we explained it a little bit earlier in the offseason, but nobody's had their mind on football the last month or so. So I'm going to reiterate to you, try to do it quickly, like what the official new rules are for the kickoff. So here we go. All right, so the new kickoff format. First of all, it's still 11 on 11. I'll just make that clear. The kicker will still kick the ball from his own 35-yard line. The kicking team, so the other 10 players on the kicking team, will be lined up at the opposing team's 40-yard line. So they'll all be lined up on the 40-yard line. The return team will have 9 blockers on their own 35-yard line. Or I'm sorry, 9 blockers in the setup zone between the 30 and the 35-yard line. 7 of those 9 players have to be lined up on the 35-yard line. So the majority of the players are only going to be 5 yards in between each other. The return team will have 2 returners that'll be in the return zone, which is basically from the goal line to the 20-yard line. So they have 2 players there. Only the kickers and the returners will be allowed to move while the kick is in the air. The other players cannot move until the ball has been fielded or the ball bounces on the ground. A kick that reaches the end zone on the fly can be fielded, or the return team can opt for a touchback at the 30-yard line. That's if a kick goes into the end zone on the fly. If the ball hits the ground or a returner before the end zone, so if the ball hits something before it reaches the end zone, either a touchback would be granted at the 20 or the play could be returned. Any kick that lands in the field of play must be returned. So that's the new kickoff rule. And the goal, obviously, of this, Eli, is to just try to make the return game more exciting. It's become kind of a dead aspect of the game. Only 22% of only 22% of kickoffs were returned last year. And that's partially because of the fair catch rule they put in last year. But one thing I like about this rule, Eli, is that this is only a 1-year rule. So the NFL is allowing them to change it next year if they don't like it. I know a lot of people don't like this rule, Eli, but me personally, I think this is a great new rule. It's going to make kickoffs more exciting. And if they don't like it, they can just change it next year. It's like the pass interference challenge rule they had in 2019. So we'll get to your thoughts in a minute, but first, want to give a shout out to a guy, John Randall. I think, I'm pretty sure that's who it is. Hi, Jack, do your thing, chicken wing. Okay. All right. Thanks for the comment, John. Appreciate it. Shout out to John Randall. Thank you for the comment. All right, Eli, what are your thoughts on the new kickoff rule?
All right, so my comments on the kickoff rule is I hate it. I'll be quite honest with you. I hate it. I think we had a basic format that everybody used to know. And I just think with all these rules, I remember when there's a kickoff, the basic stuff. Here now I got to remember this whole sheet of kickoff rules before the season starts. And I think it's just going to be a little bit confusing. And I think it's just going to complicate the game more. Basic was better. Overcomplicating it is definitely changing the game, but I do like that you can change it within a year. So by 2025, if they don't like it, they can change it. But to me, I think they just overcomplicated things. The, simple kickoff rule that they had, was perfect. I don't think there was no need to change it like this. This has gone to an extreme level. But again, I do appreciate that they can modify it in 2025 if this does not work out.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I just want to see more action on during kick returns. I just hate seeing the ball go through the back of the end zone 95% of the time. I think it's kind of boring.
Which is true, but at the same time,
hang on. I like the rule change. I know it sounds complicated, but I think it's only going to take a week or two for everyone to get used to it, and it's going to become more familiar looking. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, you got to the point already. You could say, a week or two, everybody can get used to, but I just think by the first 2 weeks, you're going to either hear a lot of complaints or already okay, well, it's not as bad as we thought. And I think we're going to hear a lot more complaints and it wasn't as bad as we thought. That's just how I'm viewing it, or just early on, the early predictions. We'll finally see some tests at the preseason level games.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a great thing about football is that, it's a great sport. We can all have our different opinions. It's a very, very complex sport. You have so many different aspects of the game and we all have different opinions. But yeah, I respect it. I understand why people wouldn't like this rule. I just like more action. So that's why I like the rule. There's one more rule we need to talk about in the preseason, and that is the hip drop tackle ban. This was a ban that was voted on by the owners this past offseason. It's resulted in some pretty nasty injuries, but to be honest, I totally understand why the NFL is getting rid of this. From from their perspective, I totally understand why they're getting rid of this. But as a fan, I just have to kind of feel bad for the defense. Like the NFL, they've already taken away hitting a player down low, hitting a player up high. And I feel like this is only going to cause more confusion. And this is going to make the ref's job even harder. We know how bad the officiating is in the NFL right now. And now that they're going to have to call this hip drop tackle, there's going to be, I would say, at least one bad call per game, them trying to enforce this rule. I hope in the preseason, like, they do a good job with this, so it's not as big of a problem in the regular season. So it should be interesting. Again, I understand getting rid of it, but, like, at some point, you've got to let the defenses just be able to play defense. It's becoming a lot harder for them to play defense.
I'm going to view this before we get to the comment real quick. I'm going to just start with the hip drop tackle. I think they're just taking too many things away for the defense to do, and it's just becoming more of like the NBA. And it's horrible to say that, but because the NBA, there's so many fouls within so many minutes and stuff. That's what it seems like is going to be happening now with the hip drop tackle ban. You can't do this. You can't do that. If not, you're going to get penalized or fined, this, that. And I just think it's just changing the game of football. This rule, obviously, is for, safety, whatever reasons. I understand that. But again, you're trying to take away less and less from the defense, and it's really going to become a hurtful situation, become like the NBA, and you're going to be fined or fouled left or right for your decision. So we will see how it plays out in the preseason. Again, that's the ultimate test right now.
Yeah, great points made there, Eli. Yeah, it should be interesting to see the preseason, how this is enforced. But, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But to be honest, I bet most defensive players and even defensive coaches in the NFL didn't even know what a hip drop tackle was until they brought in this new rule change. Like, it's not a common term used in the NFL, hip drop tackle. It doesn't even, honestly, it doesn't really make sense, but
it did. Yeah, it's not popular, when you first think of it, but to me, it just sounds like something that the players are just going to want to try to do, and it's just going to become like an NBA style, like, you're going to get fouled now or flagged now, this, like, and that. That's just how I just see what's going to come for the future.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had a comment here, John, agreeing with me on the new kickoff rule. I just think it's going to provide way more action. All right, let's get to some news about signings, extensions, all that kind of stuff, because we have a lot to catch up on. It's been a while since we've done a show. We'll start off with some free agent signings. I didn't include all of them here, but I included the most important ones. A lot of them were like third string players. I looked on this website that has all the transactions. So I picked the ones that I thought were important. Couple safeties signed. The Titans signed Jamal Adams, of course, former All-Pro with the New York Jets. Fell off so quickly. Obviously, you might have something to say about that, Eli, because he was in Seattle for 4 years. What do you think about the signing? Do you think Jamal Adams is going to have any impact with the Tennessee Titans?
We'll see how long he lasts. That's all I could say. I mean, last year was not a good year for him, and I don't know. Like, Titans, I just don't be surprised. He's not going to last too long there. That's all I could say.
The Ravens also signed a safety, Eddie Jackson from the Chicago Bears, another former Pro Bowler. I like Eddie Jackson a lot. He's a good player. And again, it's the Ravens and their defense. They always help these veterans turn around when they come over to play defense. Calais Campbell, Jadeveon Clowney. The Ravens are just so
they're
good
loaded
on defense. Yeah, they are. They have one of the best defensive schemes in the NFL, and it's been that way. That's like their whole history. Their history is defined by their defense. But Eddie Jackson, two-time Pro Bowler, former first-team All-Pro. Nice low-risk, high-reward signing. He could play alongside Kyle Hamilton, add some depth to that safety room. I think it's a really good signing. The Saints re-signed restricted.
But let me get to my point, Jack, before you move on.
Go ahead.
So I have some time to speak. The defensive side of things, I think absolutely the Ravens are, building up. This is a big improvement for, Eddie Jackson to go to the Ravens, loaded up the roster and loaded up. And we know they were Super Bowl contenders last year. Obviously, the Chiefs took the victory there. But, for the Ravens, they need to be able to step it up, and I think that starts with the defense. The offense obviously needed a little bit of improvement, although Lamar Jackson was great at the quarterback. Just offensively, they need some changes. But I think to start off with the defense to build up is an impressive start for the Ravens.
The Saints re-signed their restricted. You don't see very many restricted free agents in the NFL, but they re-signed Rashid Shaheed, which is, I think, a great move. He's a great return specialist, can make some plays as the receiver. And with the new kickoff rule, you're going to need these returners even more now. So good signing by the Saints. The Texans signed running back Cam Akers, coming off a torn Achilles. We'll see what he can do. He's going to be depth piece. Joe Mixon's their starting running back. They also have Dameon Pierce. We'll see what Cam Akers does in Houston. Also, defensive end Emmanuel Ogba signed with the Dolphins. He was a former Dolphin, but coming back to the Dolphins now. Those are the notable signings of the past month or so.
Yep.
Still have some good free agent names out there. Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs. You even have a guy like Jamal Agnew who could be a good like return specialist for somebody, but we will have to see. We've got also had quite a few extensions in the past month and a lot more recently. Some of them I included the money, some of them I didn't, because some of them were like 3 years, like 15 million, but I'll mention them though. So we'll start off with the Patriots linebacker Jelani Tavai, probably the best name in the league. He got a 3-year contract extension early in the month, so that's a good move. Pretty solid overall linebacker, and the Patriots love defense, so that's a good signing for them. The Browns extended their kicker Dustin Hopkins for 3 years. Dustin Hopkins has been one of the better kickers in the league for the better part of a decade now, so that's a good move by them. The Packers re-signed their nose tackle Kenny Clark to a 3-year deal worth $64 million. Kenny Clark is one of the more underappreciated defensive players in the league. I feel like he gets overshadowed a little bit by, there's so much talent right now on the D-line in the league, and he always goes under the radar, but that's a good move. Good job by the Packers. I think they've got another big extension coming soon, but we'll talk about that a little later. The Jaguars extended their cornerback, their CB cornerback, Tyson Campbell, 4 years, $76.5 million. A lot of money for the Georgia Bulldog, but good earned contract. One of the better corners in the league. Still relatively young, so he still has a lot of time to improve and become even better. And that Jags defense early in camp looking scary from what I've seen. The Vikings, this was a move announced just last night or 2 nights. It might have been 2 nights ago. I'm not sure, but the Vikings extended their left tackle Christian Darrisaw 4 years, over $100 million. It is crazy how much the tackle market has grown over the past 5 years or so. That's another big contract. And Eli, here's one for you.
Too
I
much.
saw this one. I don't think so. Tackle is, I would say, after quarterback, offensive tackle is the most important position in the NFL. So I don't think it's really that crazy. And here's one for you, Eli. The Seahawks last night announced their extension of their safety, Julian Love, to a 3-year deal worth $36 million. So what do you think about these contract extensions, Eli? Anything in particular, and especially about Julian Love, especially considering
I love the Julian Love signing, the right amount of money, right around a contract. He had a great year as season last year. I love it. I love it, the pickup. I love the extension. I gotta like it there. I just think that 4 years, $104 million, just a little too much. Just a little too much. I just think, in my opinion. But again, I am aware of what the change is happening now, but just a little bit too much, if you ask me. But every other pickup so far, I got no issue with it. Good pickups, and yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm sure you probably think the offensive line shouldn't be getting this much money, which I understand because I know they're not the players who score touchdowns or make the big plays every week, but these guys are important though. They
I'm aware.
protect their quarterbacks, I know you're a I know the Seahawks haven't had the best O line in their history. I know that was always a problem, but take it from a Colts fan. We've had so many quarterback injuries. These tackle positions are extremely important. They often are the reason for the durability of your quarterback. So, I mean, I understand why people think the O-line's overpaid, but me personally, I think they honestly might even be a little underpaid, some of them, because of how important they are. So those are the extensions. Any more thoughts, Eli, before we go to injuries?
Nope, you can move right along.
All right. So some injuries in training camp. There's a couple of notable ones. Unfortunately, Rams corner Darion Kendrick and Vikings corner Mekhi Blackman both suffered torn ACLs early in training camp. It's like the worst, like suffering an injury like the first day of camp. You've been waiting all off season for football, and then your season's over in like one blink of an eye. Absolutely crazy. Probably the most notable injury that we've talked about, or the most notable injury that we know of right now. Russell Wilson dealing with a calf injury, according to head coach Mike Tomlin. Justin Fields took the first team reps. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, Eli. Justin Fields looked pretty damn good taking those first team reps. Could this be maybe a quarterback competition that we didn't think would be won? But do you think Justin Fields has a chance to prove himself with the time that Russell Wilson might be out for?
All I got to say is, how many days are we into football training camp? May I just remind myself again? About 2 days. 2 days in, you already got a calf injury. Come on, man. Like, really? Like, that's, but listen, I understand. It's a quarterback matchup now in Pittsburgh. Is it, though, really a quarterback matchup? Because, We've seen the failure of what Russell Wilson did in Denver. Some people may disagree with it, but now he's in Pittsburgh, and I still don't think that we are going to see a good year from Russell Wilson. I do think that Justin Fields is going to prove himself well again, and prove everybody wrong, and he's going to deliver into a high note. And he, so far looking pretty good in training camp, and guarantee he's going to get the start in week 1, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a great point. I feel like most people in the NFL are rooting for Justin Fields to start over Russell Wilson, but I guess we'll just have to see. Speaking of quarterbacks, all 6 quarterbacks who suffered the major season-ending injuries last year, well, Justin Herbert was at the end of the season. It was not really a major injury, but these 6 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers, those 6 quarterbacks all suffered season-ending injuries last year. Some had knee injury, some with shoulder. Joe Burrow had the wrist injury. But fortunately, all 6 of them are cleared for the start of training camp, which is great news for the quarterback position.
I can tell you 3 of them will be benched after week 5, before week 5, if not.
Who are those 3?
Now, I don't know about benched. My top one for bench is Daniel Jones. The ones I don't think that are going to deliver on a high note in the opening few weeks will be Aaron Rodgers and Anthony Richardson. That's going to be my 2 picks. I'm sorry to say, Colts fans. I know you're a Colts fan, Jack. Just had to throw that out there. I just don't see it.
Anthony Richardson was ripping it in training camp today. You should have seen his
That's
highlights.
Training camp, Jack. That's not the regular season.
Well, your quarterback is Geno Smith, so I think
I'm not saying he's going to be any better either. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I just want to put it out there. I don't think that they're going to have a successful season, but that's for the season preview show. So don't forget to tune in on the 12th Horseshoe podcast.
I don't think people are realizing how good Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in one backfield is going to be. Like, that's an insane backfield duo. I don't think enough people are talking about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm getting a little too ahead of myself.
I'll make sure I replay that back, just like the whole, I'm not a Mets fan, but now I'm rooting for the Mets again. We'll get back to that.
Baseball is a whole different sport. That's like,
Did you say that? We'll get back to that. We got to move along. We got a tight show.
All right. Oh, my voice just cracked. All right. Saints offensive tackle Ryan Ramczyk. This is a bit of an unfortunate one. Ruled out for the season, dealing with injuries. It's been a bit rough for him, but a former first-team All-Pro. He's been one of maybe the best tackle in the league over the last few years. That was before Trent Williams got traded to San Francisco. I think Ryan Ramczyk was the best tackle in the league, period. So it's unfortunate that the injuries have caught up to him. And I'm not sure how much longer he's going to play in the NFL. He might have to retire because of these injuries. It seems pretty serious. So in training camp, there's this list known as the physically unable to perform list. So sometimes players who suffered an injury from the year before who can't play yet are placed on this list. And there are some pretty notable names on this list who are not cleared to practice in camp yet. Nick Chubb, TJ Hawkinson, Jalen Phillips, Odell Beckham Jr., Chase Young, and Trayvon Diggs. All of them have not been cleared to start training camp yet. So That is something to keep an eye on. Some other news, Eli. There's a couple of other quick hitters. Michael Gallup, Kenyon Drake, and Shaq Barrett all officially announced their retirements the last couple of weeks. Catching up on retirements. Yep. We had a couple of suspensions handed out this past month. Cam Sutton, the defensive back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, will miss the first 8 games of the season for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. And safety to Sean Gibson will miss the first 6 games because of violating the NFL's PED policy. And also yesterday, there was a pretty big fight at the Texans training camp in Houston. It's like pretty much the whole team was in it. The fight started between Dalton Schultz, the tight end, and Derek Stingley Jr., the quarterback, and it became pretty physical. So that's when training camp is underway, when you start having fights. Just wait for the joint practices to start. Once the joint practices get underway, that's when the fights really start to happen. That's when the true training camp starts.
Yep, indeed.
So we have had some training camp contract. This is something every year. This is something we have in training camp every single year. Contract disputes between players. There were a couple of players, though, who were able to resolve their issues before camp started. Matthew Stafford and Amari Cooper both agreed to restructure deals with their respective teams to avoid holding out of training camps, which they would have likely done. However, that does not mean that all the players aren't holding out. We still have 3 players that are holding out of training camp, and they're 3 pretty notable. They're 3 very notable names, too. We'll start off with one that maybe shocked a lot of people, and that is by far the best tackle in the league, the best offensive lineman in the league, period. Trent Williams of the San Francisco 49ers is holding out of training camp. This is a weird one, Eli. Trent Williams has 3 years left on his deal that he signed in 2021. But with the way the tackle market has grown, several tackles have surpassed him in average annual value. He wants more money, and he certainly earns it with the way he plays. He's probably the play. You could argue with the way the 49ers are. I mean, I know how good of players they are, but with how important tackle is, you could argue Trent Williams is the most important player to this team. But the 49ers are in a bit of a sticky situation right now because there's another player with a contract dispute, and they already are pretty cap strapped. They've had to pay a lot of their star players, but hopefully they can get this one resolved. It's really important that they get Trent Williams back to this team sooner rather than later. Any thoughts about this particular holdout, Eli?
Not much. I mean, it's a battle of do they really want him or not? And I think it also comes down to the money situation. Is it worth it or not? And I think, it's a tight decision that, has to be made quick.
Trent Williams is probably the only non-quarterback or defensive end that could get 2 first-round picks back in a trade. But
Absolutely.
I doubt they're going to trade him. I'm sure they're going to end up working this out. They cannot afford to lose Trent Williams. Another player is holding out. This one a bit more of a dark situation. This is Hassan Reddick, the new defensive end for now of the New York Jets. But Hassan Reddick hasn't done anything for the Jets this offseason. Didn't participate in OTAs or mini camp. He's not reporting to training camp either. So he has not reported to the Jets, period, since this trade. He has 1 year left on his deal. He wants a new contract, and he certainly has earned it. His production has he seems to get better and better every single year, and he wants a new contract, but it doesn't really seem like this is going to get resolved anytime soon. This is a bit of a sticky situation, Eli. Hassan Reddick hasn't even been in that locker room. Do you think there's a chance that the Jets could just decide that, they might just trade him if this doesn't work out? And he's like Antonio Brown, where he gets traded and then never plays for the team that traded for him?
I think that's going to be the situation. It's horrible to say, but I think might happen. I mean, looking at, the history, looking at where we are now, I don't know. This seems like a move along type deal thing. And I think the Jets are going to redo it. That's what I believe.
Yeah. It's funny that last year, the whole holdout situation was about running backs. We had 3 running backs but the Jonathan Taylor contract reset the running back market, and now running backs have been getting paid left and right lately. So we're past that. One more player holding out of camp, CeeDee Lamb, the star receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, probably a top 3 receiver in the game right now. But he has 1 year left on his rookie contract, which is the 5th year option that you could get. But he is not reported to camp. The reports are that he wants to be the highest paid non-QB in NFL history. His average annual value is going to be north of $30 million a year for sure. And there's also another Cowboy looking for a new contract, Micah Parsons, but he is not holding out. He is
no.
I don't think he participated in the mini camp, but he's at training camp. But we'll see what happens with CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys are a team that usually pays their homegrown stars. If I were a Cowboy fan, to be honest, I wouldn't really be worried about this one. I think at some point they're going to get this figured out. But if you have any thoughts, Eli, go ahead and share them.
I think he seems like the type of guy that just wants to move along, and don't think the Cowboys, you're going to make the right decision there. It's the Cowboys, bottom line. Yeah.
He has a requested a trade. I'm definitely sure that he wants to stay there because I know
I do think so.
It's probably where he's going to get the most money to begin with. So he really has no reason to leave. And I think they're going to end up figuring it out at some point. I do want to mention, though, with these holdouts, that Trent Williams and that if you hold out of minicamp, unless you're on the franchise tag, which none of these players are on, you're subject to $50,000 fines for each day you miss.
Too much.
Well, not for these guys. These guys are multimillionaires. They can afford it, especially because their new contract.
That's still too much.
Yeah, it's too much for me and you, but it's these guys. They
I know it's dollar bill to them, but still. Come on, really? 50,000?
Yeah. Well, I will say that if you are on a rookie contract, the team has the right to waive those fines if they so choose. I think the Cowboys might honestly decide to waive these fines on CeeDee Lamb, but Trent Williams and Hassan Reddick are paying a hefty price for missing training camp, but Trent Williams has a contract over $100 million. I think it'll be just fine. And Hassan Reddick's last contract was for $45 million. So these guys will be fine, but something to note that they are being fined. Now, I do have other players here with contract situations, Eli, but these players have actually reported to camp. They're just not practicing at camp. And these players are not subject to fines. So that's the difference between holding out and holding in. And we'll talk about the hold-ins real quick. The first one, this has been a storyline all offseason. I'm kind of sick of hearing about it, but Brandon Ayuk, another player on the San Francisco 49ers. The
He's
49ers having
staying.
a lot of contract
He's gonna
disputes.
stay.
It was Nick Bosa last year, Trent Williams, and Brandon Ayuk this year. Brandon Ayuk formally requested a trade last week from the 49ers. There appears to be quite a bit of interest on the trade market for him. He obviously wants a new deal, has the 1 year left on his rookie contract. But we'll see where this goes. It doesn't really seems like a bit of a rough situation. Of course, earlier this offseason, Brandon Ayuk talking to Jaden Daniels, the quarterback of the Washington Commanders, said that, the 49ers told me they didn't want me. And that's brought up a whole lot of controversy, but we'll see where this goes. I'm just not really sure, Eli, because keep in mind, the 49ers have to deal with Trent Williams now. And keep in mind, next offseason, they're going to have to give Brock Purdy a mega contract extension because usually it's after the third year that these quarterbacks get their mega deals. So the 49ers are in a bit of a tough situation right now, Eli. And to be honest, you say he's staying. I would not be surprised at all if he gets traded, even though the 49ers have said they have no intent of trading him. We see it all the time. The teams say they don't want to trade him, and then they end up trading him anyways. But if you have any thoughts, Eli, go ahead.
I think he's a crucial part of the team, and I think the 49ers have to keep him. And if he does trade out, I think the 49ers will regret their decision, and I will not be surprised they will go on the run that we want him to go, the 49ers to be on. And I think it'll be a wrong choice by San Francisco to not re-sign him again.
Yeah, that's a good point, Eli. I'll talk about Jamar Chase real quick. He has not practiced in the first two practices. He is also ready for a contract extension, which is certainly going to reset the receiver market. Well, after CeeDee Lamb gets his. But Jamar Chase and Zach Campbell's not practicing. However, the Bengals are being very interesting about this. Jamar Chase, when asked today about this, about not practicing, he refused to answer if it was for contract reasons or not. Zach Taylor, their head coach, not really giving much details as well. So we don't know if this is contract related or not. It could just be because of an injury.
It's an iffy situation.
I don't really know. Yeah, but it's been interesting. The Bengals have been very cheap in their history, but you've got to pay Jamar Chase. There's no way you can let this guy go. But go ahead, Eli, if you.
I think it's just an iffy situation that we're not hearing too much about it. It's kind of hold out. Don't be surprised it won't work out there.
All right, so this is another pretty notable one. Jordan Love, the new star quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, has 1 year left on his deal. He signed like an extension last year that allowed him to stay another year. But Jordan Love's camp informed Green Bay that while he would report to practice, he wouldn't practice until a deal was done. However, it seems like both sides are very optimistic this gets done. To be honest, Eli, they seem very close on a lot of things. So I would not be surprised if this deal gets announced within the next two or 3 days. I mean, it could even be like the next 24 hours if this gets done, Eli. I don't think they're going to spend too much time debating this. They need to get him out on the field practicing, and they know that he's their star quarterback. He proved that last year. So I think at some point they're just going to give him the most money for a quarterback all time. Then this will be past them. But I'm not expecting too much drama to come out of this one, Eli.
Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised.
I highly doubt it, but it's possible. Another quarterback looking for an extension is Tua Tagovailoa. This is a bit of an interesting one. Mike McDaniel personally said that Tua would not be fully practicing until this contract was done, which obviously means the Dolphins front office is very confident that they'll get this done. This will be another one that'll reset the market for quarterbacks. I'm not sure about paying Tua yet. I mean, the guy hasn't won a playoff game yet, and he has had many injury issues. I feel like sometimes he holds this offense back, so I'm not really sure if they should pay Tua, but we know they're going to. So
the thing is, they're going to pay him for this year, but they have no other quarterback that they could pick up right now unless they do a swap with Green Bay. That's the only.
That would be crazy if they actually did.
That would be pretty cool. I honestly wouldn't mind.
Jordan Love, though, with that arm in Miami would be fantastic, but I think he's got it pretty good in Green Bay. Great coach.
The thing is, they'll need to re-sign him. If not, I would love to see that happen, though. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see Jordan Love, Miami, Tua, in Green Bay. That would be like the craziest swap that happens right before the first game, if not after the first game of the 2024-25 preseason matchups worth of games.
Yep. All right, so the final thing we're going to discuss, Eli, is, and again, something else that comes up in training camp, quarterback competitions. There are several of these every training camp. Sometimes there's like 8 quarterback competitions. Other times there's like 2. This year there are 4, at least 4 that I've highlighted as significant
Denver
quarterback
too.
Competition.
You got a Denver, not Denver,
Denver.
Not Denver, Pittsburgh.
I'm not putting Pittsburgh because Mike Tomlin pretty much said that Russell Wilson's going to be the starter, so I'm not putting that on the list.
Well, now you got to be careful because of the calf injury.
Yeah, but I still don't think Mike Tomlin doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. So I'm going to leave them off for now. And we already discussed Russell Wilson
I
anyway.
would
So we
also
don't
add the
even
Giants too to this list. I would
no.
not be surprised Drew Lock gets his start.
Well, Eli, first before you say teams out, let me mention the teams that I do
Okay, I
have
just want to
on the
just
list.
looking at
All
this.
right, so
That's who I wish that should have been added to the list before we get to it.
okay, yeah, but I'm gonna do the names then after mention
Okay.
what teams you want to add. So we'll start off with the New England Patriots. Brand new coaching system with Jerod Mayo. They drafted Drake May, number 3 overall in the draft. It's like the first time, I think, it's first time since Drew Bledsoe in '93 when the Patriots drafted a QB. Oh no, they drafted Mac Jones 3 years ago, but they had Tom Brady for 20 years. They never drafted a quarterback in round 1, but before Mac Jones, it had been since Drew Bledsoe in '93. They drafted one, but Drake May, despite being drafted 3rd overall, might not start in Week 1. Jacoby Brissett is one of the league's best backups, and he has proven to be a solid starter in the NFL. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has pretty much seen time starting every single year that he's been in the NFL. He got some time with Washington last year. Started the first 11 games for Cleveland. So I'm not really sure where this is going to go. According to reports, Jacoby Brissett is in the lead right now, started Week 1. And for these 4 quarterback competitions, I have highlighted who I think is going to win. If you want to tell me who you think
I
is going
think
to
I
win, Eli.
agree with the Patriots
But
one for Jacoby Brissett.
I'm going
I
to
have
say
to agree with
Jacoby
you.
Brissett is the Week 1 starter. I think they're going to slowly work May in. I think he'll have an opportunity to learn. I think Jacoby Brissett is a good quarterback to learn from. They're like similar body types too, both like big quarterbacks who can move, use their legs. So overall, I think Jacoby Brissett's going to be the Week 1 starter, but I would definitely predict that we'll see Drake May at some point this season.
I think Jacoby Brissett is, definitely the starter. I mean, Drake May is, good, backup opportunity. I just don't think he's the Week 1 starter. I think Brissett has earned the right to get the Week 1 start for the Patriots.
Well, if Jacoby Brissett were to start in Week 1, it would be against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's who the Patriots play in Week 1 in Cincinnati. Next up, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings and their quarterback situation. The Vikings have had a pretty good offseason to me. They extended Justin Jefferson. They extended Christian Darrisaw. They brought in Jonathan Grenard. They had a terrific draft weekend. So I think it's been a great offseason for the Vikings. And I don't think they're going to miss Kirk Cousins that much. Now, the quarterback competition here in Minnesota is between Sam Darnold and the rookie out of Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. Now, this should be an interesting one. Sam Darnold is in the lead right now to start. And apparently he's looked pretty solid so far in mini camp and training camp. Maybe being with the 49ers last year helped him become a better quarterback. And to be honest, Eli, I don't know if a lot of people would agree with me, but I honestly think that Sam Darnold is going to be the Week 1 starter. And it would be pretty fitting too, because that would be, I believe, his first game back at MetLife, or it might be his first game back, might be the second game, but he'd be returning to MetLife where he played for 3 years if he was the Week 1 starter.
I'm going to have to go with J.J. McCarthy as the starter. Although Sam Darnold is your rookie veteran for the NFL experience, I think just coming straight out of Michigan, he's got the talent and he's ready to go. And he wants to be show that he could be the next rookie C.J. Stroud that we saw that C.J. Stroud had. So I think to me, it's going to be J.J. McCarthy who's going to be starting for Week 1 for the Minnesota Vikings.
I totally understand that point. I just think that he is in such a good situation that the Vikings don't need to rush him into the starting role. They can, help him work out his flaws the first few weeks of the season and then start him when they're ready to. But I think the Vikings might surprise some people this season. So,
but the thing is, I think they need to also start off J.J. McCarthy in some of the practices as well, because look at Aaron Rodgers Week 1. He was an expected starter, and then no practice with Zach Wilson at all with everybody, and then it just backfired and failed. And we saw Zach Wilson for majority of the season. So I think they just need to be ready on their options. They can't just hold off too much. I think they got to just be ready to go at any given point in time. But I think J.J. McCarthy is your start, because at least we know Sam Darnold is a league veteran. He can catch up to it right away versus J.J. McCarthy, where, right now is a good time to get him started and get him and to see how well he plays. Good start. It's only Week 1, good opening, it's a way to start.
I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't really think that I just don't think the Aaron Rodgers situation is really comparable to this one, but that's totally fine. I understand where you're coming from totally. Speaking of the Vikings, though, don't sleep on their defense. That defense is could be sneaky good this year with Brian Flores. They look good last year.
We'll have to wait and see.
All right, now let's talk about Eli's favorite team, the Denver Broncos.
Well, I mean, I could be happy now because no Russell Wilson on the team, so I could
That's true.
actually choose for the Broncos. I
You
am
know,
just not a fan of the one player, and I just think that one player impacted a lot for the Denver Broncos. You know, yeah,
you know what's interesting about the Broncos, Eli? They're the only team on this list, and one of the only teams in recent memory where it feels like it's like a three-way competition for the starting quarterback. Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, who they traded for this offseason, and Jared Stidham, the former Auburn Tiger. These three, actually, we've got two former Auburn quarterbacks in
yeah.
the quarterback competition. Bo Nix and Jared Stidham both spent time at Auburn, and then we have the BYU Zach Wilson. Like the only, I don't know why you'd ever draft a BYU quarterback that high. But anyways, we
We
will
have a
just have to
comment.
see. Yes, we do. I agree with you. JJ McCarthy should start because Sam Darnold has done nothing. Yeah, that's fair. But
That's a good
I mean,
point. Thank you.
don't forget though, Sam Darnold spent last season with San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, one of the great offensive minds in the NFL. You know, Kyle Shanahan has made it work with any quarterback. So maybe Sam Darnold can make it work here. And Kevin O'Connell's another great offensive mind. And honestly, I just feel like JJ's in such a good situation. They don't need to rush him in. You know, let him work out his flaws for a few weeks, because I think the Vikings are going to have a decent shot at being competitive this year. And with the way Sam Darnold has looked so far, I honestly think that they can still win with him and bring McCarthy in when they need him. But back to the Broncos, Sean Payton loves Bo Nix. He absolutely loves him, almost like the Saints and Drew Brees. That is why, despite a lot of people not liking Bo Nix, I am pegging him in as their week one starter. Bo Nix out of the University of Oregon to start for the Denver Broncos in week one. You know, Sean Payton's the quarterback guru, and he loves Bo Nix. So maybe he knows a little something about Bo Nix that we don't. And I'm going with Bo Nix to be their week one starter for the Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks, Eli. That'll be good for you because Bo Nix doesn't really like Seattle. He was 0-3 against Washington during his time at Oregon. Go ahead.
Well, for me, it ain't Zach Wilson. We already know that. We could just eliminate that. If this was a millionaire, you don't even need to use your 50-50. Jarrett Stidham, I don't think so. I think it's going to be Bo Nix. I have to agree with it. Denver, Sean Payton loves him. I think the fans are going to like him. Bo Nix is your starter. Will he deliver on week one? Not sure, because again, you're going into Seattle. But I think that is going to be your week one starter for the Broncos. And again, there is a lot of other options available if it does not always work out for Denver.
Absolutely. The last quarterback competition we will mention, one that I think I'm going to watch pretty closely because Gardner Minshew was on the Colts last year. Las Vegas Raiders are having a quarterback competition between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. This should be a bit of an interesting one. I have pretty decent expectations for the Raiders this season. That defense with Antonio Pierce coming back is awesome. You've got a good set of weapons, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. You brought in Brock Bowers. You have Michael Mayer. Sure, they lost Josh Jacobs, but I mean, Josh Jacobs wasn't really that good last year to begin with. So I have some pretty decent expectations for the Raiders, Eli. And to be honest, here's how I view this competition. Whoever is the safest with the football, whoever turns the ball the least amount in this training camp and in the preseason will be the week one starter. Because the Raiders are that kind of team where they can just be like a smash mouth team, have a great rushing game, great defense, have like clock melting drives, that kind of stuff. And you don't need the quarterback to be elite for this team to be good. You just need him to not turn the ball over. Kind of like what Tyrod Taylor did with Buffalo in 2017, where you have such a good team, and as long as the quarterback doesn't make mistakes, you're going to continue to win. Now, my personal belief in week one, Eli, having watched Gardner Minshew with the Colts last year, how sometimes careless he is with the football, I am going to say that AOC, Aiden O'Connell, starts in week one for the Las Vegas Raiders against Jim Harbaugh, who played against Aiden O'Connell in the Big Ten championship game a couple of years ago, Michigan
For me,
Purdue 22.
For me, Jack, I'm going to have to agree and go Aiden O'Connell. Although we saw a lot of Gardner Minshew with the Colts, it wasn't a great ending that the Colts wanted. And I think part of it had to do with the quarterback.
You're absolutely right.
So, and I think to me, I'm going to have to say Aiden O'Connell is definitely going to be the starter here. Gardner Minshew is definitely one of the great backups that we could see right now. But to me, Aiden O'Connell is going to be your start for the Raiders. But two other notes, as I mentioned at the top, that were not on this list. Steelers and Giants are going to see a competition here. Here's my reasons why. Steelers, Russell Wilson now has a calf injury, and I've said this since day one. Justin Fields is going to try to prove everybody wrong. To me, Justin Fields is going to be your starter in week one, and that's just, my opinion. I feel like Russell Wilson's going to fail Denver in week one. And for the New York Giants, It's quite simple. You have Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. We don't even consider Tommy DeVito. To me, I think it's Drew Lock. Drew Lock is a great quarterback. We saw him a lot in Seattle. I was disappointed when they traded him off to New York. So to me, I would not be surprised he's your week one starter if not comes in early on into the season. We seen a lot of failure from Daniel Jones last season, and I don't think this year is going to help even, and it's not going to help the situation even better.
Yeah, those are totally fair points, Eli. I just don't think they're like as open of a competition as these are, but they totally could be. Totally
It could be.
Now,
Absolutely will be.
I will ask you though, speaking of quarterbacks, in Seattle, do you think Sam Howell could at all creep up on Geno Smith's job this training camp and preseason?
Well, Geno Smith is going to get the start in Seattle, I think, for week one. Do I think he will take over for Geno Smith at some point, sometime over the season? Will it be for a long period of time? Absolutely, because I just think that's the way Geno Smith is. And it also depends on our matchups, really against these big games and even the little ones. How big of it? The biggest one, of course, is your San Francisco rival. How well can you beat them, or how well are you going to lose, or how can you at least keep the game close if you're going to lose? So that's how I just view it as, I would not be surprised. He does get a bigger start. Geno Smith will start the season. I don't know how long he will last, though. But yes, don't be surprised. He's in there for a long period of time.
Keep in mind, Sam Howell was up there with the league leaders in passing yards last year until he got benched towards the end of the season. But that is it for this edition of the 12th Horseshoe podcast presented by Prova, an Italian eatery of Moonachie, New Jersey. Covered all the latest NFL news. It was a lot. A long show. It was a bit of a long show today, but I mean, we've had nothing to cover the last few weeks, so we had to cram everything into this episode today. We'll be back really soon with another edition of the podcast covering more training camp news. We'll see when it is. If there's a lot of news this week, we'll cram a show in next week. If not, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Football is finally back. Let's go.
Go Seahawks. Go Devils. Have a good day.
Enjoy the Hall of Fame game next week. Go Colts. See you guys.